properly because we're gonna do it one by one.
Do I look too dark? Should I open that blind again?
No, I think we're okay. I think I'm just really bright because I'm in a white bright room with window and light on. So, yeah, we are live on YouTube, which is always the first one to go on because nobody ever watches on there. So we're now going to go live on Facebook. Okay. I think we're now live on Facebook. Just double checking we're all good. Could you just ask Elizabeth over your shoulder whether we're live on Facebook?
Are we live on Facebook, Elizabeth? Yeah, we are.
Cool. Okay.
Do we check LinkedIn as well?
I've just hit go on LinkedIn. I've done it one at a time rather than all in one go.
Yeah, because you got notification for LinkedIn.
Okay. Do we check LinkedIn as well? I've just hit go on LinkedIn. I've done it one at a time. Okay, so I think we are now live. Elizabeth, do you want to confirm that?
Someone's already commented on Facebook saying, "All good, mate."
Someone's commented
Cool.
saying, "All good, mate." Who's that?
Cheers. That's good. For those that have joined one of our live streams before, know that they tend to start quite chaotically because I'm not very good at this. So we've started a few minutes early in the hope that we can deal with all the technical issues. So you're now going to just be able to see me and John chat shit for like 5 minutes while we wait for everyone to join. Which stress toy is that? Is that the Fours one?
That is the Fours one, and it makes a really satisfying slight sort of squeak whenever I squeeze it.
I know. I can hear it in the background.
I don't know
do some ASMR videos at the same time. Oh, that's not bad. I quite like that. Yeah. So yeah, we'll leave it kind of another 4 or 5 minutes until we kind of see numbers start jump up and everyone sort of sees we're online, and then we'll make a start.
Sounds good.
I say got one person viewing on YouTube, but are you stressed? You're not stressed. Don't be stressed.
Doubly.
I'll doubly stressed too. Yeah, I think this is I get less and less nervous the more of these we do. I'm not gonna lie. I'll say I started off kind of having to go for like a half an hour walk before each stream to make sure I wasn't sort of too pent up. Whereas now it's like, oh shit, we're going live. I need to get myself set up. So, have you got a tea or a coffee or a drink all ready to go? By the way,
I have an orange squash. All good.
I have the famous blue cup.
The famous blue cup
gets commented on. I think it was pre-recording on one of the podcasts. I think it was Steve Kirchhoff's that went out last week. He commented. He was like, "Oh, I didn't see the blue cup once in the recording." I was like, "No, it's here. I just people make comments. I didn't want to bring it in too much." So yeah.
You wait. You're going to start having to produce merch with like.
I know.
You've got the blue cup, like a picture.
I am tempted to put kind of TMC or Morning Cuppa onto the cup. Obviously, as you know, Mary does printing and stuff, so she can sort of do the sticker for it and stuff. So yeah.
Before you know it, it's going to be a worldwide known meme, isn't it? And a GIF.
Oh,
People are sending GIFs.
Yeah.
Have you seen the blue cup?
Yeah. I've just seen Christopher Wiles. While it's quiet, compliance manager roles. I'm guessing you're looking for a new role. Yeah, we can keep an eye out.
I have seen because I get alerts from Reed. My CV. I don't think we've actually deactivated my CV, so I still get alerts from Reed and Indeed and stuff. And I could have sworn I saw was it Peters Brothers Plant Hire, something like that. They were looking for a compliance manager. There's a fair few jobs compliance manager I see.
Okay.
I don't know where they're based.
Yeah, I say Christopher, if you want to either put on the chat where you are at the moment, or send John a DM and ask him. I'm sure we can.
I'm sure I could probably dig it out. I could really dig it out of my email, to be honest, and find the email and send them a screenshot, because I'm pretty sure I
Yeah.
saw it, a compliance manager, office-based role. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm sure we could do that. Fair enough. Okay. Yep. I can understand. It sounds stressful having to resign from a role. I'm guessing because of compliance issues. Wow, LinkedIn really is behind. I'm sort of clicking onto LinkedIn to have a look at the conversation, and you're just about talking about the ASMR sound. There we go.
oh wow.
Yeah. Okay, he's based in Crewe. Oh, Elizabeth, your neck of the woods. So we'll give it one more minute, let people kind of join in, and yeah, we'll make a start. We've got a few people live now, so we'll obviously this is the monthly safety briefing. We did one last month, and the feedback was really good. This is obviously being screen shared, simulcast to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you're watching on, say, LinkedIn, obviously we're in the Facebook group. If you do Facebook, go and join the group. If you're watching on Facebook, do go and find me on LinkedIn. I do post stuff on there as well. It's always good to kind of connect with individuals. This recording does kind of stay live for a week or so afterwards because of the way social media works. It stays live, but it will be taken down. So the only way to get hold of this recording post event is by signing up to the TM Collective on the free plan. We also turn this into a PDF download for the safety bulletin as well, which then is available to all free users as well. So if you do want to get access to that, do go and sign up at tmcollective.co.uk. I think we're now bang on 1 o'clock, so we will make a start. And yeah, so welcome everyone to this monthly safety briefing from the TMC. I'm joined by John and myself, I'm Alan, today. If you attended last month, you kind of understand roughly how the format is. It went really well last month, so we're going to follow a similar format. We have some notes. If I'm looking over there, it's because my notes are over there. It's not because I'm on... Well, I am on Facebook, I guess. I am actually looking at the conversation. But I will be we've got notes to refer to, so it's not like I'm not paying attention. So should we just start at the top? I know we're both looking at the same kind of page of notes, John. Obviously, last month we spoke about the PACTS e-scooter trial.
Yep.
Obviously, they've now kind of released some more information about that. Do you want to kind of go into that first and foremost?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so yeah, they released a bit more information on the sort of the trials and tests they've held over the last couple of years. Again, a lot of this data is not going to be a surprise because obviously e-scooters are relatively not safe at the moment. So they found majority of the scooters actually operate at 12.5 miles per hour or lower. I've seen a fair few blipping around at a higher speed than that. Yeah, but I found that interesting. I actually saw, excuse me, I saw a video on TikTok the other day, and a guy was going down a dual carriageway about 85 miles an hour in one.
I mean,
And
chaos.
The camera, he's got a GoPro on his forehead and his helmet. I'm assuming it's helmet, and he's just rattling around. It looks like some sort of F1 pilot, like a Air Force pilot, flying his big fox. He's literally sitting there rattling around. I was like, that can't be. That's pretty scary. Like,
Yeah.
I like motorbikes and speed, but that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they basically police data. They shared the police data, and they said in 2021 there are 129 casualties involving e-scooters. So what they've done is, bear with me here, so it gets a bit mathematical. Basically, the data compares pedal casualties, obviously bicycles, rates per mile to against e-scooters. Okay, so they compared the data, and they found an increased factor of 3 to 4 times for e-scooters, the danger and the casualty rates. So walking and public transport obviously have lower rates than pedal cyclists, but obviously the e-scooters are way out there by 3 to 4 times. So it goes to show they're still not quite there yet. Obviously, it wasn't just a trial for people riding e-scooters. It was other people's thoughts as well, the general public, motorists. And they found that, again, it's not going to be a surprise, is it, Alan? People felt unsafe around them. They felt unsafe. They found pavement parking was impacted people, both able and disabled walkers. It was a pain. The data is still being reviewed. There are still decisions ongoing for future legislation. In terms of time, I don't think they haven't released any more details. I think it's now just needs to be reviewed and see what happens in the future.
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of things. It's like I think they aren't any more or less dangerous as a mode of transport to say cycling. In my personal opinion, although the data obviously doesn't agree with that, I think the point is it's the behaviour and the understanding and the legislation. So where do you ride them? Like you got some morons riding on pavements around pedestrians. Like, well, of course there's going to be more accidents. They're silent. Like bikes don't go on pavements. If they were treated like bicycles and they had bicycle lanes and they had to wear helmets and they had to have lights and all that sort of stuff and they were genuinely limited to 12.5 miles an hour, I can go faster than that on my push bike. So it's not like it's any more speed wise. I don't think that's the issue. I think it is it's how they behave because they're unregulated. I think that's the issue. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing that we're going to be following in more detail. Obviously, this is a crossover between just like HGV safety and obviously road safety from our customers and our users' point of view, but also kind of as a social mobility kind of point of view. Like they are. It's an interesting kind of topic that we'll be following in more detail.
It'd be interesting to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of, I mean, obviously we attended the PACTS conference on this last couple months ago, and obviously we kind of subscribed to their stuff. So as things come out, obviously we'll be putting it onto the stream and stuff. Next thing we wanted to discuss was if anyone has questions, by the way, I've got a question coming in from Tracy. Interesting, what the ages of casualties? Yes, I think they did have that data, ages and gender. I think it, from what I can remember, don't hold me to this. It obviously was more applicable to younger riders being involved in the instance. I don't know if you read that as well, John. I don't know
Was it under 18? It was quite a young age. It wasn't sort of 21 and below. I think it was teens and below. It might be worth looking into that actually. Yeah, because they've released so many stats and it's such a big, chunky read. A lot of it's not applicable. So yeah, I might go away and try and find those other bits of stats. That's a good point. But I'm pretty sure it said something about 18-year-olds.
Yeah, I think that kind of throws up another kind of question. Tracy also says, do we need licensing? Obviously, you don't have training and licensing for push bikes. So,
no.
But then there is obviously cycle safety and what do you do? Cycling proficiency. That's the one I was looking for. Like,
but you do that.
Children
at school, don't you? Yeah.
It's like I mean I say I'm sure your little one is doing the same. Learning to ride their bike, kind of more independently. Obviously, for our audience, we've got 4-year-olds at home, not with each other, independently. And obviously you're teaching them to ride a bike and like stabilizers are coming off now. They're going to start riding around independently around the park and other people. So you teach them to do that, but actually there's no parental educational pathway, I guess, for e-scooters being used. It's not quite the same sort of view as say cycling. So interesting question. Watch this space, I guess, is the answer to that. As I was going to say, any questions as they come along, please do ask. Elizabeth is fielding them. I'm going to put them into kind of one place for me to kind of throw at John when they come in. So yeah, please do chuck them in various chats as they come up. Next thing I want to touch on is the longer lorries that kind of they announced. I think it actually comes into it already in force. Was it the 23rd of May? I think it was in
21st of May.
21st, sorry, I did read the notes. It is there, yeah. So obviously it's actually in place. So do you want to kind of, I know, like just do some background on it and we can discuss it.
So basically, as I said, laws are now being introduced to permit. They're called longer semi-trailers. So LST is the acronym that everyone goes by. So basically, the combinations have gone up to 18.55 meters. On GB roads, just talking about GB at the moment. So that's actually just over 2 meters longer than the standard size. So obviously the reason for this obviously is changing UK regulations. They want to obviously grow the economy, level up the economy, boost productivity, slash road emissions, because it actually saves. They're saying around 70,000 tons of carbon dioxide. For activity, and also it's going to better improve our chains. They've come out with some figures. They expect the UK economy to boost by about 1.4 billion pounds. Yeah, they're saying also it's going to reduce potential journeys by 8%. So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I have no experience of longer semi trailers. Hopefully, one of our viewers now will have some experience. It'd be interesting to see how they operate. But yeah, it can only be a good thing. I don't know. Again, literally on the face of it, operating these LST lorries in central London, I don't know how that's going to have an impact. Our businesses going to have to go now. Businesses that are going to run these trailers, and they have to go in and review their paperwork, risk assessments, their policies, driver training, probably.
Yeah.
Especially obviously as unfortunately these accidents still are happening in London. Obviously, I know you're gonna touch on that later on, Alan, but
Yeah,
they are still happening. But anyway, besides the point, it's obviously good leveling up the economy.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing personally. It does help our industry be more efficient, effective, and sustainable. Which I mean, I know we joke a little bit in terms of that's our slogan and stuff within Hub, but yeah, I think it is important. So yeah, there's lots of questions coming in. So if I go silent, it's 'cause I'm reading them.
All right, so I'm sitting here
I think
choking.
Mickey on Facebook asking, can we see? Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can see comments. There is a slight delay on the feed coming in and us getting it, so we will get to it. And if anything we don't cover, I'll pick up at the end when we kind of get to the end summary. Yeah, I think it's the one question from I think Tracy again.
Yeah.
How many stores are able to accept the longer trailers? I think that's an interesting question. Obviously, as you say,
What was the question? Sorry.
we can put the vehicles on the road, but can they be used in kind of tight spaces around kind of access and egress and stuff?
I'm pretty sure when this was released, they had some articles of companies that are going to start using them, and it's all the big sort of retail chains. I saw articles about John Lewis taking advantage of it, Dunelm, The Range, B&M, Iceland's, and it'll probably be Tesco's, Morrison's, that sort of thing. So obviously they're lucky because they have obviously huge warehouses, huge sites. So, but it's a good point in terms of going into London, these longer trailers. I don't think
it's also if it's doing obviously things like last mile versus middle mile sort of logistics. Clearly, middle mile going from like fulfillment to like kind of warehouses fairly simple to change things. But in terms of access, got a couple of questions. Is I think one Mickey on Facebook asked, weighbridge length is a question he's got with. He wants to run them but can't due to the length of the weighbridges, which is something I hadn't really considered.
I suppose most weighbridges do have a standard length. The weighbridges I've been over, I've only been in 32-ton trucks. My driving history, so I never had that issue. But I suppose the only way around that, and it's a pig, and no one's going to want to do it because you're going to get swore at, is weighing that additional axle and then having to work it out, and it starts getting complicated with tickets. It would potentially be a nightmare. Yeah.
I do wonder how much of this sort of stuff was thought through, or whether it's just opening up the option for the ability to run them if it suits kind of the supply chain that you're working within.
See, I suppose you think about it. Let's just take John Lewis for example. Most of their sort of stuff is palletized, isn't it, or caged? Like Tesco's, for instance, all roller cages, isn't it? And each cage has a weight limits, and obviously they've got the weights and all their products. So they know how many roll cages goes on a particular vehicle. So I'm sure it's pretty easy for companies like that. But as you just said, with the chap that just commented, I don't know how you get around that. You don't want to start weighing individual axles. That's going to be a pain.
Yes, not something I want to be doing kind of on a regular basis anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all that percentage that you're making improvements, you could double that and chuck it out the window.
Yeah. And Mickey says here can't drop the trailers either due to the ramp angles and stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's not. It's it's a difficult one to navigate. I'd be intrigued how infrastructure can shift and whether it is worth it shifting or not. Obviously, it's one change. So yeah, Tracy says they have weighbridge to each axle. It depends on how often you're doing it. If you're in sort of kind of construction, you're doing 3 or 4 loads a day. They can get quite laborious quite quickly.
To be honest, I don't know what the LSTs. I don't know what trailers they actually produce. I don't know what sort of trailers they produce. Whether it is just traditional curtain sider type general haulage. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
There's a few
Sorry.
questions coming in. We'll move on, and if anything comes up, oh, hi Sammy. Elizabeth just feeding me all the things that's coming in, so everything's coming in. So yeah, just one point. The chairman of the National Highways has stood down, moved on to the role of chair. Dipesh Shah. It's just a note to be aware of. I don't think it makes a massive difference, but I just think it's important that we kind of know these changes that come on. I think the next topic is obviously it was actually happening last month, and we kind of ignored it, thinking it wasn't a big deal, and then we kind of did a bit more research, and it's actually quite a big thing to be aware of. Is the MOT strikes. So do you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah. So obviously, the strikes. Obviously, a date was impacted in May. But yeah, so basically, MOT testers are going on strike. I think the last strike was on 10th of May. The next one is on June the 7th. So they reckon it's any MOT testing station. The government has released sort of guidance on how it potentially impacts your business, but as a whole, basically they're just saying that still, if your vehicle is booked in for the June the 7th, excuse me, I've got hiccups. The government stated you should still take your vehicle to the testing appointment as plans. The government stated not all DVSA staff are union members, and even if they are, they may choose not to go on strike. Obviously, that's very ambiguous message, basically go and just see what happens. Obviously, I probably don't recommend that. Waiting till the day, obviously, as transport managers, you're going to be on top of your maintenance, so it's worth planning around that date if you're concerned, or if you have a good relationship with your testing station, give them a call and ask them what they're doing. So at the end of the day, they'll be forthcoming with the information, but as a whole, it's worth planning around that. So again, that's June the 7th they are striking. There is no list of stations sort of that says they're on strike, because it's the staff members, not the station. So as the government said, if there are 10 testers there and if 5 are unionised, chances are there'll still be 5 testers. But again, it's worth talking to them and planning around it just to be safe.
And there's no excuse, essentially. You can't let something lapse just because of a strike. So it's not an excuse to have a non-MOT'd vehicle. So
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Give me a couple of seconds, see if any questions are going to come in. I can't see anything. That's fine. Yeah, nothing coming in. Casper asks, he's joining the stream. Hi, Casper. Do they have to be forthcoming about saying that they are striking? I guess not, no.
Sorry, Alan, you broke up. What was the question? Sorry.
I was saying, do testers need to be forthcoming that they are striking? Do they have to tell people? I don't think they do.
No, I think the union as a whole needs to give some form of notice to the higher authority. It's like the teachers and the doctors. The doctors are going on strike, aren't they? Again, soon for 72 hours, 40 hours, 72 hours.
Yeah.
Form of notice. Excuse me. So yeah, it's we'll have to keep an eye on if this is listed as the last day of strike. But of course, we're going to have to keep an eye on government notifications and see if there's any more.
Yeah.
So let's hope this is the last one.
Yeah. In terms of notifying us as operators, I don't think they have to. Is the point? They have no, they can strike, and it's not like schools have to be closed and you have to be told. I don't think they have to have any sort of it's not the same sort of setup. So yeah.
No, there wasn't any. No, you're right. There wasn't any warnings issued. It was just it literally stated on the gov website, and that was it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Okay. Next topic is the DVSA have revised the categorization of vehicle defects. We covered some last month, but we want to talk about load safety and security. Do you want to kind of run through those quickly?
Yeah. Excuse me, I have such a tickly cough, so I apologise. Yes, obviously we touched on some of the bits last month, bits and pieces, and then we reviewed it since then and thought there's a couple more bits and pieces. Chances are even next month's safety alerts bulletin. Sorry, we're probably going to sort of probably bring up a couple more that we think's worthwhile. But yeah, basically some of the things that people are discussing at the moment are the load safety and security, the changes they've made. So I've got 4 bullet points, and I'll read them out, and I've even written down the pages where they are in the guide in case you want to read some more about it. So XL rated curtain siders, vehicles and trailers, they've had to change the positive fit, meaning no more than a 30 centimetre gap between load items. That's on page 52. So anyone runs those, you need to bear in mind that change. Skip trucks, so they've done an update on security arrangements and the stacking of skips. I think that's on page 52 and 53 of the guidance. Carriage of vehicles, so basically sort of transporting cars, vans. The requirement to lash your wheels, they've made some changes to that. That's on page 53. And finally, wheeled heavy plants. Again, carriage of those. There's a requirement to lash and chock wheels. That's on page 54. So there are some. So go to those pages that affects you and give them a little read.
Cool. I'm just going to stop you there, John, because I'm getting notifications that the recording has the live video is stopped in terms of the stream. I'm just going to see if it has. Elizabeth, can you see anything?
Can you see if the stream stopped? Alan's got a notification that it stopped.
Which
Oh,
It's live on Facebook.
it's live everywhere.
it's live on Facebook, live on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and live on YouTube.
Okay. Well, if one
Yeah,
of you can
it's
put a
all
hand-
good this end.
That's fine. Yeah, it's just okay. I know there is a delay, so it might be that it might kind of drop out in a sec. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay. We've got Casper and Elizabeth monitoring it in the background, so yeah, they'll
That's
let us
fine.
know if there's any
That's cool.
issues.
That's fine. Yeah. I think there's probably in terms of kind of the categorization of the defects. I think there might be a longer, more nerdy piece about that rather than just a few minutes in a safety briefing. So we might potentially kind of put that into a workshop or a webinar or something. So might be worth kind of keeping an eye on that. So there's been a setback to net zero. Again, I'm not going to go into much detail about this. Urgent action is required to meet net zero target by 2050. Currently, 23% of global CO2 emissions is road transport, so target is possible but requires urgent action, according to Young Tai Sim, Secretary General of the International Transport Forum. What was there to say about that, really, other than yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, with the by 2030, obviously we're not going to have the combustion engines be built anymore, so that's going to be interesting. So
Yes.
that's going to have an impact. It's always going to be a struggle with road going transport and heavy goods vehicles because unfortunately there's not much out there at the moment that can that can help apart from monitoring your fuel usage and doing your best to keep your own emissions down and investing in the best lorries you can purchase. Unfortunately, beyond that, it's not really there, is it? You went to the commercial vehicle show, didn't you, Alan? And
Yeah.
what did you see there? That
it's no different to what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years of like nice prototypes and stuff, but nothing really kind of. It's a difficult one to crack. The infrastructure's not there for it as well. I must say, I am actually, after we get off here, I've got a meeting with a sustainability consultant about. She doesn't specialise in transport. I mean, she's been on the pod, so kind of people have heard of her. But yeah, we're looking to see what we can put together in terms of a program or a process that we can help TMs implement in their businesses to try and reduce emissions. Because I think most people care about it. Not maybe as a higher priority as maybe road safety to our target audience, but I think people do care, and so it's something that's worth having a look at.
That'd be interesting.
But yeah, Martin asked what publication were the page numbers regarding load restraint. John, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, it's from the let me go back up to my notes. Yeah, it's the revised categorization of vehicle defects. It's the actual guidance that they released.
Okay.
I don't know whether if I can quickly find the link and give it to someone to put in the chat.
Stay on the chat. Don't do it now because we want to carry on. But
We'll do it at the end. I'll do it at the end. I'll
yeah,
put the link
stay
there if we can.
on the feed afterwards, and we'll dump
Yeah.
it in there, and people can see it. I think that was Facebook. It was come from.
Yeah, or just Google the changing guidance. It's a very hefty document. We discussed this last month, didn't we? I think it's like 200, 300 pages. Yes, it's very hefty. But yeah, hopefully those page numbers will make it a bit easy reading.
Yes, yeah. So last month the DVS permits were kind of some updated. I'll try again. TFL released figures around DVS permits, and yeah, it's quite an interesting it was stats around how successful it's been and also what's going to happen going forward. John, you were jumping on that.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Yeah. So they released obviously figures suggesting that 94% of HGVs in London operate now with a DVS safe. And it's sort of they're saying it's helped halve serious collisions since 2018. So that's a pretty cool stat. And they're making a slight change in the way what you need to apply for. So they've stated currently for vehicles with a 0-star rating, obviously the DVS safe system must be retrofitted in order to qualify for a permit. But from October next year, so October 2024, that's going to change. So vehicles with 1 or 2-star rating will also need to comply with the updated DVS progressive safe system requirements. So again, if you're going to be affected by that and you've got a permit or you're going to be applying for a permit, you need to start thinking about, obviously it's still way over a year away, but it's worth starting to think about now.
We kind of got involved quite heavily in the last round with our customers, helping them kind of get their permits and stuff. So it does take time. It is worth kind of addressing that right now. And I've just written some notes around maybe doing a workshop where we can actually kind of support the transport manager in how to do this. Because obviously we've got a fair amount of experience because of obviously our previous knowledge of this. So I think it's something that might be worth it if anyone's interested.
Well, no, I think so, because obviously there's lots of suppliers out there that supply the same equipment, but it's about finding a reputable supplier, and I was also going to be able to maintain it. Some of these guys are fantastic on day one of installing it, but then, excuse me, some of the previous jobs that I've held, some of the rules were, if you had obviously a side scan sensor go, your truck was parked up and you got it fixed. And if your company was useless and said, oh, cool, we've got a 24-hour turnaround time, your vehicle was parked up for 24 hours. So it's worth thinking about that. Cheapest is not always best with these systems. Yes. But yeah, I think it could be a good call to talk about again.
Yeah, no, I've actually been writing some notes and talking some things that I think are bigger topics than we're discussing now.
Yeah.
Very quick note. I know it's been kind of mentioned a couple of times on various chats and stuff. DHL have announced a new cloud-based platform to support staff with mental health. Yeah, I mean, it seems to just be kind of a fairly standard kind of support system, employee support system. But yeah, it's good to see it being used in transport.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is. We discuss this a lot, don't we, here, about supporting your staff and their well-being. And as we said the other day, it should be what DHL are doing. Shouldn't be a surprise, because all companies should really do it. You should all be looking after your staff. But it is nice that they actually. I think it covers a lot of subjects. Obviously, you can see from the notes, things from not only mental health and well-being, but things like pregnancy and fertility problems you may be having, neurodiversity, mental health, obviously menopause, even financial well-being. So I think it's a really good indication that obviously that's where we all need to go. Obviously, smaller companies will struggle financially to provide some of these things, but excuse me, it's a pretty big deal. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I mean, there's in kind of my other life outside of transport and logistics, it's something that comes up quite a lot. Obviously, people know that I see a therapist, and so that's something that kind of I discuss quite openly. But yeah, I think having access to these sort of support systems is really important, and they're not as expensive as you think as well. There's lots of things out there that are significantly cheaper than what we expect. So yeah, had a couple of questions coming around DVS, or kind of points and stuff. Yeah, I think Rob, you make a good point. Yeah, in terms of operators need to be engaged with the DVS meetings, as it is complex. Yeah, no, I agree.
It's not the
And
easiest application process.
yeah,
It's
and
not.
also things aren't actually agreed yet as well. So yeah, as I Mark, you say not much we can do because TFL haven't actually published what those new safe systems are. So there's not much we can do. But yeah, I think it's something to be aware of and kind of keep an eye on the ball, just that when they do happen, we can actively support them. So yeah, thank you for those comments. Next thing, as we did last month, we kind of did a few deep dives into a couple of public inquiries and a couple health and safety situations. I think I've seen a couple of these, and obviously we are going to briefly touch on the incident that happened in central London yesterday that's come across our sort of our desk, as it were. Saw it online. We're not going to discuss that in much detail, just because, in all honesty, it's quite fresh and new, and we don't know much. But it does highlight some points. So, should we just kind of start at the top? Scroll to my notes. So the first public inquiry was for Alan Whiteford Contracts Limited. It worked really well last time. Do you just want to do like your sort of summary and learns?
Yeah, I've got a few notes here. So yeah, the first one was for a company called Alan Whiteford Contracts Limited. So bit of background about the company. So they had previously been called to a PI back in February 2006. And then in May 2019, the operator was issued a strong formal warning following a maintenance investigation carried out the month before that. Alan Whiteford is sole shareholder and is one of two directors. The other director is Jane Leith, his daughter, and who's the transport manager for the business. Mr. Whiteford's son, Andrew Whiteford, he was currently doing his CPC during this time. And obviously, just as a disclosure, obviously all this information is out there in the public domain and all the names. That's why we have no issue talking about the names and company names. So, excuse me. So most recently, this was last year. So he was called to PI in December 2022. After July 2022, the vehicle was stopped for a roadside check, and discovered that Mr. Whiteford, the director, the sole shareholder, they found that he was driving HGV, but he did not have the Class C entitlement on his driving license. So obviously they've done some more investigations. Actually called to the public inquiry took place 9th February 2023 this year. So it was found that Mr. Whiteford actually told the traffic examiner on the day of the check that his licence was being renewed by the DVLA. He was questioned by the police, and Mr. Whiteford informed that the HGV entitlement had been removed due to a medical issue. So upon further questioning, it transpired, and this is what he was quoted as saying: Christmas time, I was advised not to drive for a month until further tests were carried out. And when I had to renew my licence in May, I received a letter to carry out an eye test, which I passed. The licence status is still in progress for medical tests. Upon investigation, there was found out he was committing quite a few driver's hours offences. In June, I think he committed 5 in total. So they fined him on the spot when they found the licence category issue. He was fined £100 and a 3-point penalty on his licence. They did some further investigation. They actually found out he did have a letter from the DVLA basically stating that they received the medical information about his inquiry, and basically they said that you had a stroke and you just risk reoccurrence and you cannot drive. That's what they said indefinitely. He obviously wasn't very forthcoming about this information. So fast forward to the investigation, and they said basically Mr. Whiteford was allowed to be the sole shareholder of the business, but was not allowed to be a director. They turned around and said they do not want him running any part of that business whatsoever. So they took away the operator's license. The tracking measure stated that if they're going to apply for another license, it's got to be at least 12 months before you could do so, and Mr. Whiteford can have nothing to do with the business apart from be a director. Fortunately, the transport manager, his daughter, was allowed to retain her good reputes.
I'm confused a little bit at this point. Like, isn't part of the TM duty doing license checks?
I think the problem is with this case, I think as it's again, I'm not stereotyping family businesses, but going from this particular story, it looks like that the father, the shareholder, knew what he was doing, and the daughter's probably been sort of forced. Again, I'm making very massive assumptions
Yeah.
here, but we see this a lot where family is encouraged to join the business, partial CPC because I'm getting on in life and I want you. For all I know, and I don't know this because there's no notes on it, I don't know how long that the TM had a CPC for.
Yeah.
So we don't know. It could be, wet behind the ear, fresh TM. I don't know, but you're right. There's basics here, to pull the wool over your family's eyes by saying, I'm fine, I'll drive.
Yeah,
I'll do one day, it's
but
fine,
even
it's
if you do lie, which I mean, let's be honest, people would lie in that situation. Surely, as part of your duties, you're doing 6 monthly or 3 monthly license checks, and once you do that check, you'd see that be removed as a category.
fine. I think all the family knew because he had a stroke,
Well, there is that, as
and he
well.
had and he had letters from the DVLA saying you can't drive anymore. Sorry, you can't drive anymore because there is a massive risk of reoccurrence.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing. We smile that these sort of things happen, but it still is going on.
Yeah.
This was only the last. The inquiry took place this year, and this incident took place last year.
Yeah. So
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
still
So I found
happens.
it interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sorry, have you got any more comments or shall I move
No,
on?
no, I was gonna say just for the next one, Neo Logistics Limited.
Yeah. Sorry, this blooming cough. I apologise. So Neo Logistics. So get about the background again. There's lots of long names for these people, so I apologise if I pronounce them wrong. I know Alan, you love when I pronounce names wrong. So I might abbreviate some of these names a little bit. So they hold a standard national license for 2 vehicles and 2 trailers. There's 2 directors, so a gentleman called Callistus Ockley, and I think it's his partner, Enzima Cynthia Umera Brown. Okay, I'm going to start calling abbreviate their first names to Cal and Cynthia from here on out. And Cynthia is the TM for the business. So this one's an interesting one because there's lots. It's all about card swaps and driver card swaps. And when I get to the bottom of it, the TC, they couldn't quite find anything wrong, but they knew something was up. So it's very sort of, if I go through it and you can make your own minds up. So in October 2021, their driver, Stephen Happiness Nazawi, I'll call him Stephen from now on, was stopped for a routine side check. Okay, and they found that the tachograph card, his driver's card being used, was in the name of Cal, obviously one of the directors. So a follow-up investigation found several occasions when it appeared that the tachographs had been swapped between Stephen and Cal, and vice versa. Okay, gaps in information were found, including sort of unusual infringements, driver work schedules. Things didn't quite add up. So the transport manager responded to the shortcomings. We're saying that. Oh, don't worry, we've got transport consultants coming in and they're going to assist us sort of getting these little bits and pieces fixed. It wasn't good enough. They were called to a public inquiry where Stephen, the driver, stated, he wasn't aware that there was another person's card in the tachograph unit when he was driving.
Surely you put your own damn card in. But anyway.
Cal believes Stephen was using 2 cards because, and this is where it gets a bit complicated. It's basically that what they were doing is they were doing driver swap overs. So they were based in the same area, and he would drive past the driver, a driver would get out, and the other driver would get in, and then they swap their cards over. Then the other driver would have their time off. So he's saying that they're using the cards between the changes at locations many miles away from the operating centre. So Cal stated that the changes took place locally, where he would take over driving from Stephen, right?
Yeah.
The transport manager, Cynthia, stated she had been aware of the arrangements in place to swap the driver's car routes, but not the details. It was noted that the practice had stopped since the investigation, though. So they further investigated, so using things like ANPR cameras, and obviously his own personal car to meet the lorry, so that's how they picked up the locations, these 2 individuals. Yeah. And excuse me, they found out that they were both in the area at the same time. So it seems legitimate that there was a car there and they were coming in and coming out. And the TC's words were, the traffic commissioner said, I still remain highly suspicious A lot of information is vague. So the operating license days, the reputes of the operating directors has been tarnished, and the transport manager is marked as severely tarnished. So, again, when you go through, I've only taken snippets of this. The investigations are very long documents, so by all means, go off and read it. But something doesn't quite add up here. You know, if this was normal practice, excuse me, if this was normal practice, why did Stephen say, first of all, I didn't know the card was in there?
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't. Also, they stated they didn't find. Obviously, there's 2 card slots. There wasn't another card in the other slots. It wasn't a mistake of putting in cards, swapping them over. The card was completely incorrect.
Yeah.
So something's not quite right there.
Was the driver prosecuted at all? Was it just the operator?
It didn't state that.
Okay.
No, it didn't. Nothing stated. So unfortunately,
Because
no.
I feel like as a driver, you should know you should use your own card. And if you go, I didn't know the card was there. It's like, well, that's just basic kind of competence.
Well, he must have known in his hand of his own driver's card was in his hands, and didn't bother putting it in.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So yeah, something. As I said, it does make an interesting read, and they for the traffic commissioner to turn around and say he's still highly suspicious that something's not.
Yeah.
Something doesn't add up here, and it's all very vague. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, as I said, they got suspended for 7 days, and they've had their reputation tarnished, all
Yeah.
of them. So yeah,
Yeah.
those 2, which I thought were pretty good cases.
Yeah, no, I must say, of the this format we're kind of going down, I quite enjoy these sort of reviews and stuff. I think we could definitely have more discussion around it with maybe the audience. Maybe send out this information beforehand and might start maybe a bit more of a discussion. So moving on, saying similar sort of looking down at the HSC kind of cases. There was two cases we're going to discuss.
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, we made these notes a while ago, and one of the first one I know, excuse me, Kai mentioned that someone stated it on Facebook recently because people are talking about this first one. It seems so. But yeah, I've pulled 2 from the agency website. Obviously, I always recommend people sign up to the health and safety executive newsletters. It's really good reading. So yeah, so the first one, 2 major transport companies have been fined a combined total of 2.2 million. Out of all the things I read through on the agency website, this is quite a sizable fine compared to most of the others we see transport related. Arthur Brown was killed, so a guy was hit by an HGV in Birmingham. So again, all this information is on the public forum, so we can state names and company names. Excuse me. Neil Roberts, 60, a depot manager of Turner's Soam Limited. He was struck by a reversing HGV on the 30th of August 2019. The incident happened at the premises of the Haulage Group Limited on Inkerman Street, where the vehicle reversed out of a parking space in the transport yard. Obviously, sometimes the reason this has only been reported now, sometimes the investigation can take quite a long time, especially if there's a death of someone, which is why we're knowing about it now. So investigation by the agency found basically the companies have failed to manage the risk associated with workplace transport. The accident was completely preventable, he stated.
Yeah.
Both companies pretty much failed to recognise any risks and control any risks associated with workplace transport, and in particular the dangers of reversing vehicles and poor visibility.
Yeah.
The basic rights of ensuring pedestrian vehicles are kept well apart. Pedestrian vehicle segregation is kind of one of the first building blocks of having a site like that. It's pretty important. If the company, if both companies had acted to identify these risks and managed to put controls in place, he'd still be alive now. Something as simple as that, That's all the details they've released at the moment. But yeah,
it's obviously highlights the fact that kind of they might have had a policy or a risk assessment in place, but bits of paper are completely bloody pointless unless you implement them on site and actually use them to influence change. And I think that's something that sometimes we do see. It's people see this sort of stuff as a tick box exercise, but this highlights the fact that you really do have to pay attention and actually implement sort of stuff you say you should implement. I'm saying I assume they had stuff in place. They may not have done. I'm assuming whether they did or not, it wasn't implemented, and I think that's obviously the issue.
Yeah, you could sit in an office all day and write the best risk assessment you can, but if you're not going out there and actually looking at what goes on in your yard, and also talking to your staff and getting them involved in the process of creating those risk assessments and policies and procedures, whatever, it's not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah.
You know, and also like, yeah, I think we've touched on this a few times before, you know, just thrusting a bit of paper into someone's face saying, sign for this risk assessment, please. You know, sorry, mate, you've got to do it once per year. Oh, okay, I'll sign for it.
Yeah.
It's not on. Like, you should be discussing these. And obviously that touches on some of the other things we said about using risk assessment as a toolbox talk. Just talk to them, talk them through it, get some interaction going, get some talking, you know, get that grey matter working a little bit. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to implement like the things that we as transport managers really care about is policies and procedures and things in place and stuff. But again, it's about communicating it, and I think we've touched on it in other recordings we've done in terms of kind of driver communication, driver behaviour. I know I'm doing a live stream next week. James, you made the point. Policies are okay if everyone knows the policy. Yeah, 100%. That's the point. If they don't know, it's not communicated. I'm doing a live stream with Dean Sandiford from DTS, Driving Test Success, next week. I've not actually announced it yet. Dean, I think you are on the stream, so hello, Dean. We're doing one on how to write a training program for drivers. Essentially, as a TM, how are you able to kind of train your drivers, not just CPC stuff, but actually kind of deliver kind of training materials yourself to your drivers in a way that influences change. And I think Toolbox talks based around policies and risk assessments are a really, really good way of doing that. So yeah, if you're interested in that, in kind of how to do that, please do. I'll be making the live stream go live. Hi, Dean. I'll be putting the event live to subscribe to in the next couple of hours once we finished here, and I've kind of got all set up, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
That will be just good. That'll be a really interesting one. I think being able to create bespoke training, you know, training, again, we spoke about it so many times, training's not all about having shiny certificates. Yeah. It's just about improving people's know-how and knowledge. Yeah. You know, you don't have a certificate on the wall saying you've learned something. So that sounds like a really good session. Really good.
We touched on types of training in one of our webinars we recorded. It's not actually live yet, so we've spoken about it. It's not out there yet.
Yeah, I keep forgetting
but
that.
Yeah. It's like, I really enjoy kind of this sort of topic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that with Dean next week.
Amazing.
And they'll be announcing a new partnership we're doing with those guys. So yeah, that kind of just a couple more things to go through quickly. But before we do, talking about kind of other webinars and other live streams and stuff. Obviously, we're doing live streams every week in a variety of things, totally free for everyone. But they are all recorded, so if you can't make it and you want to kind of make sure you don't miss anything, the TM Collective, we do have a free plan that you can sign up to. It's totally no obligation, no card details to get in. It literally is totally free. So it's tmcollective.co.uk. Just go to the pricing page and sort of go to the free plan. You'll get all this, and there's other stuff there as well. So as I said, this is recorded. This goes into there, but we also turn this into a bulletin as well, which you can download and print and then distribute to your staff and to your operators so they can have a lot of this information as well. Just a bit of a segue into an advert there. Back to us. One more HSC kind of events to discuss, one more alert, and then there's a couple more things before we wrap up. So yeah, the next one is about waste and recycling plant.
Yeah, so a waste recycling company has been fined after an employee's leg was amputated after he was run over by a telehandler. So man hasn't been named, but he was a gentleman who was 51 years old at the time, working for a company called Eco Waste and Recycling Limited at the company's waste transfer site on Hullock's Pitts Hill in Newham, which is in Hertfordshire. So he was struck from behind by a reversing telehandler on the 16th of March last year, 22. He was sorting recyclable materials out by hand at the time. The incident led to the man's right leg being amputated from above the knee. Investigation by the agency, they found Eco Waste and Recycling Limited failed to adequately, again, you see a theme here, segregate vehicles and pedestrians at its sites, and they failed to act quickly on the findings of the risk assessment they were doing. the Eco Waste and Recycling, who are actually based in Harpenden, pleaded guilty on the 4th of May 2023, so very recent. They were fined £30,000 and they had to pay just over £3,000 in court costs. Agency went on to basically say that this incident could have easily been avoided.
Yeah.
Segregation measures should have been in place between pedestrians and vehicles. So again, not as obviously it's still just as serious. As poor man's, his life is now going to be changed forever. But also the gentleman before, killed outright, just because people aren't segregating. So yeah.
I mean, it's a definite theme of those cases, the last two ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so simple, such an easy thing to do as well. So this is just kind of we'll flip. I know the notes say one thing, John. We'll flip them around. Obviously, there was an incident yesterday morning in central London. I think it was near Fitzrovia, where a cyclist unfortunately lost their life. I think it was a tipper turning left that caused the incident. Yeah. Obviously, a very sad day for all. Obviously, our thoughts go out to the victims' families and also to the driver as well. We don't know the details, so we're not going to do any we're not going to point anything anywhere. We read one article in prep for this like 2 hours ago and talked about a lot about data in terms of incidents and stuff. And this actually is the first cyclist death in London this year, which is sad, but kind of numbers have come down. It does show how important DVS and kind of that impacted in terms of road safety and stuff. So I'm sure more stuff will come out in the coming weeks. I'm not going to speculate. We're not going to do any of that. I just wanted to kind of bring it to everyone's attention that it's in the public domain. I'm sure we'll probably do a piece in this in a month's time if there's any information further. It did throw up a load of stats around cycle safety and incidents and deaths and fatalities and serious injuries, so it might be that we touch on that in a bit more detail, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring it up because it was literally 24 hours ago, which kind of leads me on to our final point, which is how safe is a truck. Obviously from April this year, HUV has been included in the Euro NCAP rating kind of rating system. Yeah, do you want to kind of just elaborate on that?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, so the Euro NCAP, which basically stands for the European New Car Assessment Program. So from April 2023, HGVs are now going to be included in the ratings. Yeah, you kind of asked why it hasn't never done before. Basically, the Euro NCAP is a voluntary program. So it sets the safety criteria and test vehicles provided by manufacturers. And basically, it's been a key component encouraging improvements to car and van safety for years. At the moment, it runs obviously on a star rating of 0 to 5 stars, and they've hinted that that's what HGVs will go from 0 to 5 stars. Obviously, 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. And they obviously threw up some stats. The most interesting stat was across all EU roads year, almost 15% of all road fatalities involve an HGV. So it's still there. I can only assume that having safety ratings of vehicles, it's going to give vehicle manufacturers opportunities now to try and embed new safety in vehicle designs. They can actually look at what's working, what isn't. Because obviously, I don't know if you've seen the videos how they test vehicles. It's very interesting watching them simulate rollovers and watching the crash test dummies flail around is quite something. So yeah, this only be a good thing. So
definitely. Just to go back to our previous point around the incident in central London yesterday, Rob says professionalism of drivers is also a contribution to collision reduction, and something not to forget. I think it is important. It's drilled in to drivers, and I think it's a balancing act in terms of how we discuss and debate this. But yes, I think drivers on the whole are very professional and do take this stuff seriously, which has obviously helped hugely in the reduction of incidents. So yeah, I mean that's been a journey, hasn't it? Bloody hell. It's heavy topics this month. I mean, obviously we're talking about road safety. It does tend to be. Is there anything? I know we've kind of got through our notes. Is there anything else you wanted to add, John?
No, I think for next month's safety briefing, I think we'll try and find some more details out on the scooter trials, which are really interesting. I think also we'll put some research in about the longer lorries, the semi-trailers. I think it'd be interesting to see if any sort of research or see what tests are going on currently. These big companies at John Lewis, see how they're actually getting on.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
But also, as you said about the yesterday's cyclist fatality, as you said, there are some really interesting stats about over the last few years of how many cyclists have been killed or injured. So we'll potentially do that in next month's briefings. There
and
are
that,
some really
and that
interesting
also
stats
links
there.
into the e-scooter kind of trials as well, because it's all part of looking at fatalities and stuff. So yeah, interesting. Good. A bit sad. So yeah, as I said, next week's live will be with Dean from DTS. It will be going up in a few hours' time. If you want to get this recording, it is available on LinkedIn for next week and Facebook for the next couple days. I will be putting it onto the TMC. So if you haven't already signed up for the free trial, the free account, sorry, please do go and check it out, because as I say, it's not just this, there's so much other stuff you can access. The bulletin will be going up next week. Obviously our 73rd bank holiday is next Monday, which does put things in the way for getting stuff out the door. So yeah, it'll probably be Tuesday by the time that actually goes on there, but do go check out the other stuff now. Other than that, thank you very much, John, for your prep for this. I thoroughly enjoy these. I find them really useful and beneficial to myself. If anyone has any feedback, then please do send me a DM. Obviously, if you're on LinkedIn, please connect with me. If you're on Facebook, my inbox is open. Ask on the group. Yeah, cheers, Rob. Yeah, thank you very much. That's good, kind feedback. As I say, we're always looking to learn and improve this. So if there's anything you want us to cover, then please do say. Other than that, I'm now going to hit stop recording, and then we're going to have the chaos trying to stop this and see all the other streams drop off. So thank you very much, everyone.